Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive here on the Book Summary Podcast. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future deep dives. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Start With Why by Simon Sinek. This is a book that a lot of you have been asking us to cover, so we're excited to finally dive in.
Yeah, it's a really interesting look at how great leaders inspire action and why some people and organizations achieve incredible success while others, even with all the same resources, they fall short.
So it's not just about having a great idea or a great product, it's about something more.
Exactly. Cynic argues that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Oh, I like that.
And that applies not just to businesses, but to, well, like everything, like individuals and even movements, right?
It's super interesting. So where do we even begin with a concept like that?
Well, a good place to start is with the story of the Wright brothers.
Oh, yeah. The book opens with their race against Samuel Pierpont Langley to achieve powered flight. It's kind of a classic David and Goliath story, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Langley had government funding, like a team from the Smithsonian, all the resources you could dream of.
And the Wright brothers, they were just two bicycle mechanics working in their little shop in Ohio. But they ended up making history, while Langley's project, even with all that money, it crashed and burned, literally.
Exactly. And that's where the WHY comes in. Sinek says the Wright brothers were driven by this really profound belief, their WHY, that powered flight could, like, change the world.
Yeah.
Langley, on the other hand, he was after fame and fortune. You know, what? And it was that belief, that WHY, that gave the Wright brothers the perseverance to keep going, to innovate, and ultimately to succeed.
So it really was the power of purpose that propelled them forward.
Exactly.
That's an amazing story. And it kind of sets the stage for Sinek's core framework, the Golden Circle. He says that every individual and every organization, they operate with a WHY, a HIW, and a what.
But most of them communicate from the outside in. So they start with what they do, then how they do it, and then maybe, if you're lucky, they'll tell you WHY.
So they lead with the features and benefits rather than the underlying purpose.
Right. But the truly inspiring leaders and organizations, they flip it. They start with WHY.
So it's like peeling back the layers of an onion. The outermost layer is what you do, like the products you sell, the services you offer.
Yeah, and then the next layer is how you do it, like your unique processes or your value proposition.
And then at the very core, the heart of it all, is your WHY.
Your purpose, your cause, the thing you believe in. And when you communicate from that place, when you lead with your WHY, you connect with people on a much deeper level.
That makes so much sense. Think about Apple. Sinek uses them a lot to kind of illustrate this idea.
Oh, yeah.
They're not just selling computers and phones, right? They're selling this idea of thinking differently, of challenging the status quo. Their Think Different campaign.
Yeah.
It wasn't about specs or features. It was about a shared WHY that resonated with people who kind of felt the same way.
And that's a big part of why they're so successful. People don't just buy Apple products. They buy into the whole ecosystem, the community, the feeling of being part of something bigger.
It's like you're not just buying a product, you're buying into a belief system.
Exactly.
So this idea of starting with WHY, it's not just for big companies like Apple, is it?
Oh, definitely not. Sinek argues it works on a personal level, too. Understanding your own WHY, your purpose, your passions, your values can help you make better decisions in life, attract the right people, and just generally live a more fulfilling life, you know?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So how do we find our own WHY?
Well, he actually provides a framework for it, which involves digging into your past experiences and trying to identify patterns in your choices. You know, looking for those moments when you felt most fulfilled, most energized, those times when you felt most like yourself, you know. It can be a difficult process, but it's worth it.
He calls it the celery test, which I love. It's all about looking at your actions and motivations through the lens of your WHY. Like, if your WHY is to live a healthy lifestyle, you're more likely to choose celery over a bag of chips, right? Not because you have to, but because it aligns with your core values.
Exactly. And it's not just about healthy choices. It's about applying this principle to every area of your life, right? From the career path you choose to the relationships you build. Understanding your WHY can really help you make decisions that feel right, that feel aligned with your true purpose.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in the what and the how, especially in today's world. But taking the time to connect with your why, to understand what truly drives you, can make such a huge difference in your happiness and fulfillment.
It really can.
And that kind of brings us to another key point Seneca makes, which is the difference between manipulation and inspiration.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
He says most companies resort to manipulation to get people to buy their products or services. Price wars, promotions, peer pressure, fear tactics, all those things that might work in the short term, but ultimately erode trust and loyalty.
Right. It's like a sugar rush. You get that initial spike, but then it just fades away and you're left feeling kind of empty.
Exactly. But true inspiration, that comes from communicating your WHY. When you connect with people on that deeper level, when they understand your purpose, it creates a sense of belonging, of shared values, and that leads to lasting relationships and genuine loyalty.
It really is the difference between like a transactional relationship and a transformational one.
That's a great way to put it. What are some examples of companies that really get this?
Well, Seneca uses Southwest Airlines as an example.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
They've built this whole culture around putting their employees first. They know that when employees are happy, it leads to happy customers, which then leads to happy shareholders. They're not just selling cheap flights, they're selling a belief in the power of people and relationships.
And that resonates with people, right? You can see it in their loyal customer base, their strong employee morale, their overall success as a company. It really is proof that starting with WHY can lead to tangible results. But it's not always easy to keep that focus, is it? Especially as companies grow and things get more complicated. Sinek talks about how a lot of companies, as they get bigger, they kind of lose sight of their WHY.
Yeah, he calls it the split. That moment when an organization's focus shifts from WHY to what? It's like they've climbed the mountain, planted their flag, and now they're just trying to hold on to their position instead of remembering what inspired them to climb in the first place.
Right, the passion and the purpose fade away. And they start relying more on those manipulative tactics we were talking about.
Exactly.
They lose their authenticity, their connection with their customers, and eventually it starts to show in their results.
He uses Continental Airlines as kind of a cautionary tale. Right. They were on the verge of collapse until a new CEO came in, Gordon Bethune, and he completely transformed the culture by getting everyone to reconnect with a shared WHY. What's fascinating is it wasn't about some complicated strategy or anything.
Really?
It was about really simple things, making employees feel valued, creating a sense of ownership, and aligning everyone around a common purpose.
So it was about going back to basics, to those human elements that had been lost along the way.
Yeah. He even started the system where every employee got a bonus if the airline's on-time performance was in the top 5.
That's brilliant. It's a small, tangible action that reinforces the WHY and creates this ripple effect throughout the whole organization. It's a great reminder that leadership is about inspiring people to believe in something bigger than themselves, not just about giving orders.
Absolutely.
Now, before we move on, I just want to remind everyone to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel.
And if you have any thoughts or insights, we'd love to hear them in the comments below.
Okay, back to start with why. Sinek talks about the importance of finding the right people, the ones who believe what you believe.
Oh, yeah, that's key. It's not just about skills and experience. It's about shared values, a shared WHY.
So you want people who are aligned with your purpose, who are motivated by the same things you are.
Exactly. He uses this incredible story about Ernest Shackleton, the polar explorer, to illustrate this.
I love Shackleton's story. So inspiring.
Right. When he was recruiting for his Antarctic expedition, he wasn't just looking for skilled sailors. He was looking for people who were drawn to adventure, who thrived on facing, like, seemingly impossible challenges.
So he was looking for people who shared his WHY.
Yeah.
A desire to push the limits of human endurance, to explore the unknown.
Yeah, and that shared WHY, that sense of purpose, it's actually what helped them survive one of the most harrowing expeditions in history.
Wow. But it's not just about expeditions and grand adventures, is it? This principle applies to everyday life, too.
Totally. When you surround yourself with people who believe what you believe, the level of trust and collaboration just skyrockets. You don't have to micromanage or constantly motivate them because they're already intrinsically driven by a shared purpose.
It's like building a team of superheroes, each with their unique skills and talents, but all united by this common mission.
Exactly.
And that brings us to another really crucial point: trust.
Uh-huh.
Sinek argues that when customers trust your WHY, they're more likely to forgive your mistakes, to stick with you even when things get tough.
Right. Think about those local businesses you support, the ones you keep going back to even if their service isn't always perfect.
You trust their WHY. You believe in what they're doing, and that creates a level of loyalty that goes beyond just transactions.
It's like that feeling you get when you support a friend's business, you know? You want them to succeed, you believe in their vision, and you're willing to give them the benefit of the doubt because you trust their intentions.
It's about building real relationships, both in business and in life.
Yeah, it's about connecting with people on a deeper level, you know? A level that goes beyond the superficial and gets to the heart of what really matters.
I love that. It's about building connections that are based on shared values, shared purpose, and a genuine belief in something bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely. And that's what Start With Why is all about. It's about understanding the power of WHY and using it to create a more fulfilling and impactful life.
So we've talked a lot about why it's important to start with why, but how does this actually play out in the real world? Are there examples of companies that have really nailed this? And what about those that have stumbled?
There are tons of great examples in the book. Like, remember that whole thing with TiVo? They had a great product, tons of funding, a seemingly perfect market, but they just couldn't reach that critical mass of early adopters.
Oh yeah, that's a really interesting case study. It seemed like they had everything going for them.
They did. But Sinek argues they kind of stumbled because they focused too much on the what and the HOW, the features of their DVR, the convenience it offered.
But they didn't really explain why it mattered.
Exactly. They couldn't articulate why TiVo mattered in a way that connected with those early adopters, the ones who could have become their biggest fans. On the flip side, think about the civil rights movement. Sinek points to that as a powerful example of how a clear WHY, embodied by leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., can spark a movement that changes the course of history.
Dr. King's WHY, his unwavering belief in equality and justice, resonated with millions and inspired them to take action. It wasn't just about his incredible speeches or his strategic brilliance. It was about the depth of his conviction, the way he articulated a WHY that tapped into people's deepest desires for a better world.
Right. It wasn't just about what he was saying, it was about why he was saying it.
And that's what made all the difference. It's incredible how Sinek connects these seemingly different examples, a tech company, a social movement, and shows how the same principles apply. Whether you're a startup, a nonprofit, an individual, the power of WHY is universal.
It really is.
And it's not just about having a WHY, it's about living it, breathing it,
Yeah.
embodying it in everything you do.
Right. It's not just about crafting a mission statement and sticking it on a wall. It's about aligning your actions, your decisions, everything you do with that core belief.
So it's walking the walk, not just talking the talk. Making sure your actions are a true reflection of your WHY.
Absolutely. And that brings us back to finding your WHY, something we talked about earlier. Sinek argues that it's not something you invent, it's something you discover. It's about looking inward, examining your past experiences, and trying to identify those patterns that reveal your core motivations.
He calls it self-archaeology, right? Like digging through the layers of your life to find the WHY that's been there all along.
Exactly. He even provides specific exercises and prompts to help you with this, like thinking about those moments in your life when you felt most fulfilled, most energized, most aligned with your true self.
He acknowledges that this can be a challenging process, even uncomfortable at times.
It is, because it requires real honesty, like a willingness to confront those parts of yourself that you might not want to face.
But he assures us the rewards are worth the effort. Because once you have that clarity of WHY, everything else starts to fall into place.
It really does. Your decisions get easier, your actions become more aligned, and you start attracting the right people and opportunities into your life.
It's like having a compass that guides you in the right direction.
Exactly. And remember, your WHY isn't fixed. It can evolve as you grow and learn. But the key is to never lose sight of that core belief, that driving force that gives your life meaning and purpose. And this focus on WHY isn't just important for individuals, it's crucial for organizations too.
Yeah, because if a company loses sight of its WHY, it can easily end up chasing profits or market share at the expense of everything else.
Right. At the expense of their employees, their customers, their own long-term sustainability, everything.
It's like they've traded their soul for short-term gains. Sinek uses Walmart as a really powerful example of this. They're founded on this strong WHY, a deep commitment to people, but after Sam Walton died, that WHY started to fade. They shifted their focus to profits and efficiency, and we saw what happened. Employee morale plummeted, customer satisfaction went down, they faced all sorts of legal issues. It's a cautionary tale.
It really is. It shows what can happen when you lose sight of what truly matters. But on the other hand, there are companies that have managed to maintain their WHY even as they've grown into giants. Like he talks about Costco.
Oh, Costco, yeah.
Yeah.
They have a great reputation.
Right. Their CEO, Jim Sinegal, he's like the living embodiment of your WHY. He puts employees and customers first, even if it means slightly lower profits.
And it's paid off for them. Their employees are incredibly loyal, their customer satisfaction is consistently high, and the company just keeps thriving. It's proof that you can be both successful and purpose-driven.
But what about companies that have already gone through that split? The ones that have lost sight of their WHY? Is it possible for them to reconnect with their original purpose?
Sinek believes it is, but it takes a lot of effort. It's about rediscovering that WHY and realigning everything they do with that belief.
So kind of going back to their roots, remembering what inspired them in the first place, and using that as a guide for future decisions.
Exactly. It requires a pretty significant shift in mindset, a willingness to challenge the status quo and potentially disrupt their existing structures.
It sounds like a big undertaking.
It is, and he stresses how important leadership is in this process.
Of course.
You need a leader who not only understands the WHY, but can inspire others to believe in it too.
Made sense?
He uses Steve Jobs returning to Apple in the late 90s as an example.
Oh, yeah. Apple was really struggling back then. They were, but Jobs came back in, reconnected everyone with Apple's core WHY, challenging the status quo, empowering individuals, and it became the driving force behind their incredible comeback.
And then all those iconic products came out of that era. The iMac, the iPod, the iPhone, they were all a reflection of Apple's revitalized WHY.
Exactly. It's such a powerful example of how a clear WHY, when it's championed by a passionate leader, can really revitalize a company.
It could even revitalize an entire industry.
Right. And Sinek suggests that this process of rediscovering your WHY and reconnecting with it isn't just for companies.
It's something we can all do in our own lives too.
Exactly. It's about taking the time to think about what really matters to you, to identify the WHY that gives your life meaning and purpose. Then start making choices that align with that. We always ask kids what they want to be when they grow up.
Right. What do you want to be when you grow up? It's
Yeah.
the classic question.
But maybe a more important question is why they want to be that. What's the deeper motivation, What impact do they want to have on the world? That's the WHY that can really light them up.
It's about finding that thing that makes you jump out of bed in the morning, that makes you feel like you're making a difference, that you're leaving the world a little bit better than you found it.
Exactly. It's not always easy to do that, especially when there's so much pressure to conform, to take the easier path. But the rewards are worth it. When you live a life that's aligned with your WHY, you not only achieve greater success and fulfillment, but you also inspire others to do the same.
It's about creating a ripple effect of positive change.
It really is.
Well, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Book Summary podcast for more conversations like this.
And if you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to hit that like button and share it with your friends.
Now, let's move on to the final part of this deep dive, where we'll explore how to actually scale your WHY, how to build a megaphone for your message, and ultimately, how to inspire a movement.
Sounds good. Let's do it. So we've been talking about finding your WHY and making sure your actions really reflect that. But how do you, actually get that message out there? How do you scale that inspiration so that it reaches more people?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's where Sinek brings in the HIW and the what of his golden circle, right?
Right.
So you've got the heart of it, the WHY, but you need the brains and the body to bring it to life.
Exactly. The How W is all about the actions you take to make your WHY a reality. It's about, the processes you build, the values you embody, the culture you create.
So for a company, that would be things like their hiring practices, their customer service, even the way they design their products.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you've got the what. This is the tangible proof of your WHY. The products you create, the services you offer, the stories you tell.
So the WHY is the soul, the HLW is the mind, and the what is kind of like the physical manifestation of it all.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And when all those are aligned, it creates this really powerful message.
It does. Sinek uses Apple again here to illustrate this. Their WHY, to challenge the status quo and empower individuals, is woven into everything they do. You can see it in their minimalist design, their marketing, you name it.
And that consistency is so important, right?
Yeah.
Because if your actions don't match your words, people will see through it.
Oh, yeah. Authenticity is everything. People can spot a fake from a mile away.
Totally. It's like that friend who's always going on about sustainability, but they drive this gas-guzzling car.
Right. Their actions completely contradict what they're saying.
Exactly. If you're not truly passionate about your WHY, if you're not living it every day, your message just won't resonate. So it's not just about coming up with a catchy slogan or a feel-good mission statement. It's about walking the walk, making sure your actions consistently reflect your beliefs. But, okay, how do you actually maintain that consistency, especially as things get more complex? Like as your business grows or your life just gets busier?
Well, Sinek talks about building systems and structures that reinforce your WHY. This could mean creating rituals or symbols that remind people of your core values. It could be about incorporating your WHY into your hiring process to make sure everyone on your team is aligned.
So it's about making the WHY an integral part of everything you do.
Right. And it's an ongoing process, too. As you grow, as the world changes, you need to keep revisiting your WHY, making sure it's still relevant, making sure it still inspires you.
It's like tending a garden. You have to nurture the seeds, weed out the things that don't belong, and just make sure your WHY has space to thrive.
Love that analogy.
And thanks. So now in the last part of the book, Sinek gets into this idea of scaling your WHY, like building a platform to really amplify your message and maybe even spark a movement. He talks about using the golden circle as a framework for doing this.
It's about taking that spark of inspiration that starts with WHY and turning it into something bigger, something that can spread.
Exactly. Like, how do you create that ripple effect?
Well, he emphasizes that authenticity is more important than ever when you're trying to reach a wider audience. People can sense when something's not genuine.
That's so true.
Yeah, remember, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. If your heart's not in it, your message won't connect.
It all comes back to that.
It does. Sinek ends the book with a powerful call to action. He really wants people to find their WHY, communicate it authentically, and then actually live it out every single day. He wants us to know that we all have the ability to inspire, to make a difference, but it all starts with understanding why we do what we do.
That's a powerful message. And it ties in perfectly with what we've been discussing today. This whole deep dive has been about exploring the power of WHY, how it can drive innovation, build loyalty, and ultimately help us live more fulfilling lives.
It really has been a fascinating conversation.
I agree. And I hope it's given everyone listening some food for thought as they consider their own WHY and how they can make it a reality.
Me too.
If you enjoyed this deep dive into Start With Why, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the Book Summary Podcast for more insightful book discussions. And share this episode with anyone who might be on their own journey of discovering their WHY. We'll see you next time.